Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Let me know if you guys can hear me or if the audio is too low. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Type it in the chat. Anyways, today's topic of the video is going to be free will versus destiny. Free will versus destiny, because that seems to be a really big debate, I guess, when we talk about spirituality and the nature of the soul and also the nature of nature. So to really understand free will versus destiny, we've got to understand the distinction between consciousness and matter. Because the thing is, consciousness and matter, although they are two sides of the same coin, the expression and the experience of consciousness and matter are going to be diametrically opposed. The thing is, the difference between consciousness and matter can be compared to the difference between mind and body. You operate a body. It's pretty obvious that you can see, smell, taste, touch, and hear. But there's another operation going on, which we call mind. And this is an observation of what the body is experiencing. It's also an observation of things the body may not be experiencing. So there's two different expressions here. The same can be said for matter and consciousness. So to start, let's talk about nature. And essentially, what is nature? The simplest definition that I can muster is that nature is pattern. Nature is the process of expressing pattern. That's nature. So that can be your individual personal nature. That can also be nature at large. The trees express pattern. Animals and their behaviors are all expressed through pattern. Even human beings and the things that we do, say, and think are expressed through pattern. Nature is pattern. Now, the question is, what is the pattern, right? What is the pattern that nature is expressing? Well, nature is expressing life. Life is the pattern that nature expresses. Life can be seen as an organization of potentiality. Potentiality. Life can be seen as an organization, a collection of potentiality. And it is through this potential for all possibilities, it is because of this potential, nature expresses whatever potential is easiest for it to convey. Now, in this case, if we talk about life, we're also talking about consciousness. Life and its collection of potentialities include roughly three distinct layers of potentiality. Things that are expressed, things that are unexpressed, and things that will never be expressed. So when we talk about the dance and the connection between consciousness and matter, we're also talking about the connection between life and nature. Nature expresses the patterns of life. Nature expresses the patterns of consciousness. So we're going to see things that are expressed, such as the things that you can interact with your five senses. We're going to see the things that are unexpressed, which are things that are pure potential. And then we're going to see a category of things that will never be expressed. And these exist in a domain all their own. But to understand free will, we've got to also understand the relationship of these things. So we talked about nature being a pattern expressing function, and we talk about life being the patterns that nature is expressing, and we briefly touched on what consciousness is. So consciousness is actually an awareness of these potentialities. Consciousness is an awareness of all the possible potentialities, whether they're expressed, unexpressed, or never will be expressed. Consciousness is the awareness of all of these potentialities. However, consciousness exists at varying degrees. So we can speak of ultimate consciousness as being the totality of awareness of every possibility, whether it's expressed, unexpressed, or never will be expressed. That's on one end of the spectrum. And on the other end of the spectrum of consciousness, we would have the absolute and total awareness of absolutely nothing. So in between the ranks here of total awareness of nothing and total awareness of everything, we have life manifesting in different degrees. We could say at the very bottom of the spectrum we have mountains and rocks, right? Things that are inert, because the nature of nature is inertia. The nature of matter is to be inert. It isn't until matter is stimulated by consciousness, or rather, it isn't until matter becomes influenced by the potentiality of consciousness, that nature begins to move. Now again, that expression of consciousness takes place in a range between absolute awareness of nothing and absolute awareness of every potential possible. We're somewhere in the middle, because the mind that we are equipped with has an awareness of many things, and we have the potential to have an awareness of many things. But the vast and overwhelming majority of what we call ourselves is an unconscious process. There's a very small fragment of your being that is aware of anything. Most of the processes that take place in our existence are unconscious. The body has its own conversation within itself and with the environment. The body causes the eyes to blink to keep moisture on the eyeballs. The body processes the oxygen that it itself breathes, not your awareness. The body processes the blood flow, regulates the pressure and the temperature, and a myriad of other things. So the majority of our existence is of an unconscious nature. Now, with that being said, this unconscious nature is expressed, but there's also an unexpressed aspect. And what I mean is that as long as there's what we call a stomach, there will always be the unexpressed potential of the stomach making acid and digesting and churning and doing exactly what it does. Now, that exists somewhere in what we could call a blueprint, the unexpressed. But when it is expressed, we're going to find that when you add food to your body, that function now becomes active. So it isn't limited to how it can express itself. That's just the outside surface level of a thing. Truly, to understand the consciousness of what we would call a stomach, you'd have to understand its root cause. It's designed to perform an activity. This goes across the spectrum for all of life. Everything exists as an expression of a pattern, and every pattern serves a function in an overarching pattern. Now, this overarching pattern is what we could call consciousness, because as I just said, consciousness expresses itself in a range between absolute awareness of nothing at all and absolute awareness of everything possible. Life expresses itself at various degrees within that spectrum. And here's the thing. Consciousness is so expansive that consciousness includes nature. Nature isn't exactly something separate from consciousness. Matter isn't exactly something separate from consciousness. Consciousness is the complete and total range of awareness of all potentialities, whether they're expressed, unexpressed, or never will be expressed. So somewhere within that expressed category of consciousness is what we would call nature, what we would call matter. Which means that there's an unbelievable degree of things that do not incarnate through matter, through the medium of matter. And there is an overwhelming number of things that we can't even comprehend. So, with that being said, to understand free will, to understand destiny, we have to understand the distinction between matter and consciousness. And that is what we talked about for the past couple of minutes. Along with this, it's important to understand that matter is, by nature, inert. When there is no life found within matter, it is inert. It is just there. It doesn't do anything. It's dead. Matter does not have a mind. Nature does not have a mind. It simply expresses the patterns that are given to it. So when we see nature behave in a certain way, It isn't done with personality. It is just done as an expression of a pattern. So for us to add an abstract story to nature is projection, and it's not true. That's false. For me to see nature performing in a certain way, I can add a meaning to it, but that's a device of my own doing. It isn't reality. Likewise, when people behave in certain ways or say certain things that we may agree with or not agree with, if we don't know the full story, all that we can do is project and guess, and that also is untrue. That would be an error to assume that we understand things that we don't. It's best to wait and exercise patience until all of the available data presents itself in order for us to create an accurate judgment on a thing. So matter in itself is inert. Matter in itself is inert. What causes matter to move? Because matter doesn't have a will. Matter doesn't have desire. Matter doesn't want anything. It doesn't have consciousness. What causes matter to move is consciousness. Because as I said before, matter and nature is the process of expressing the potentialities that reside within consciousness. Matter expresses what is in consciousness. And when there is no expression, matter is inert. So what is the expression? The expression is what we call vibration. Vibration is the result of the influence of consciousness upon matter. Vibration is the result of the influence of consciousness upon matter. So if we know that consciousness represents a collection of all potentialities, expressed, unexpressed, and ever to be expressed, when these expressions or unexpressions come into contact with a medium that they can be expressed through, we have what's called vibration. So if you can picture in your head vibration really, its nature is to be repetitive. Sound or feeling or anything. The nature of vibration is to be repetitive. Now what happens is that because vibration is expressing itself through matter, and matter's nature is to be inert, eventually that vibration will become distorted. If you were to play a sound or some type of vibration through water, you're not going to get all of the frequencies associated with that sound. You're only going to get what does make it through the medium of water. So likewise, as long as vibration exists through a medium, it will be distorted, which means you're very limited in your perception of that vibration. So if you can imagine a vibration that does not exist within a medium, that vibration would be perfect and eternal because there's nothing to stop it. We know through science that an energy and an object in motion will remain in motion until it is stopped. We know that gravity has the same effect on everything. Eventually things will fall to the ground and be still, inertia. So just imagine a space of potential where vibration doesn't have anything to stop it. In the ancient texts, in the Vedas, they call these things seed vibrations, seed mantras even. Like Om, Lam, Ram, Vam, etc. So the closer we get to consciousness and the complete awareness of more and more things, the further away we get from being limited to matter. So there is a realm, there is a space, there is a state of existence where all potentialities exist unimpeded. That's the unexpressed realm. And if we continue in that direction, we'll get to the never to be expressed realm. But if we take that potential realm, when it meets with matter, that potential now becomes expressed. Now, what I also mentioned before is that consciousness is an awareness of these expressions. So here we go about free will and destiny. See, these patterns are going to play out as they play out. Because if there's no awareness of these patterns, then again, there's nothing to stop them. All of matter is subject to the influence of consciousness. All of matter, because on its own it is inert. and its natural state is inertia. So if life, which I said is an organization of potentiality, if life is not aware of these potentials, then it has no possible influence on the patterns that are expressing through it. Animals lack the degree of mind to be aware of the patterns that express through them. That's why they operate on what we call instinct. Instinct is simply a collection of patterns and potentialities. There's no awareness of these. So animals and trees and other life forms that are largely unconscious, much like ourselves, these things simply express the patterns that are given through them. So again, most of us in our minds are coming from a very unconscious state. That's why we continue to repeat things that we do and wonder why we're going through pain and suffering. We continue to repeat these patterns. We continue to behave in certain ways that sometimes we're confused by, sometimes we're upset by. But the thing is, because we lack awareness of the patterns that manifest through us, we're subject to them. To be quite honest, we're completely bound to the patterns because we have no awareness of them. This is why it is so important to analyze self, to pay attention to what's happening in your experience and what's not happening, to pay attention of how you experience reality, how you perceive reality. It's so crucial to pay close attention to the self. It's easy to get distracted by the patterns that be. Some patterns exist to bring a pleasurable state. It will never stop. That's why we continuously chase the things that we want. We continually chase them. And even if we get them, we're already pregnant with another desire. So there's no end to that. And without an awareness of that truth, you'll continue to go in endless loops and cycles. It isn't until there is an awareness of the nature of desire and the nature of nature, it isn't until there's an awareness of this that it can be influenced to operate in a different way. And this also begins to explain how astrology works, how the science of astrology works. See, the changes are not caused by planets. As I said before, we're dealing with different levels of vibration, which are expressed, unexpressed, or never to be expressed. And there is a realm where there is unexpressed vibration, unexpressed potentiality. It isn't until these potentials are expressed that we have what we call nature. Now here's the thing, it doesn't start in nature. Nothing starts in the realm of matter. Matter is the final realm where expression finally takes place. So the science of astrology deals with being able to examine these patterns, to examine them as they're expressing, before they're expressing, and after they've been expressed. We can tell because we can use the planetary symbols as markers and indicators for what type of pattern is currently being expressed in nature. It isn't caused by astrology. Nothing is caused by matter or by nature. But by using the symbols of astrology, we can come to understand the patterns that are at play. Now again, if one does not have an awareness of the patterns that express themselves through them, there's no hope of influencing those patterns. Therefore, free will does not exist for those who are unaware of the patterns that make up reality. Free will cannot exist because these same individuals, whether they be human, animals, plants, or otherwise, are subject and bound to the patterns that enable them to be alive. That's the short and simple answer. Are you aware? Are you aware? And to what degree are you aware? If you have any questions, let me know. I see a bunch of waves in the chat. Greetings. So for certain, of paramount importance, is knowledge of self. Knowledge of self. And I am not talking about knowledge of your physical body. And I'm also not talking about knowledge of your memories. That isn't what I'm saying. When I say knowledge of self, what I'm saying goes much further than how your body looks and operates, and much further than how your memories have been collected. Knowledge of self has everything to do with an awareness of the potentialities that exist within consciousness, because you are a potential. You're an expressed potential, and there's also an unexpressed aspect of you. There's also a never to be expressed aspect. The more that you can become aware of these potentials, the more you have knowledge over yourself, which means by default, the more you are reaching towards free will and reaching away from destiny. Because the aspects of matter that are not aware of these patterns are bound to these patterns. You're bound to them. In the very same way, you're bound to the influences of your subconscious mind. The things that have happened to you in your past, of your entire existence, if these things have had a deep impression, especially a deep emotional impression on your being, you begin to build an identity around those things. Which means that as you go through life and you experience similar situations, you're going to respond in a predictable manner. That is not called free will. That is called being bound to the pattern and the influence that resides within your mind. So it isn't free will just because you say you have free will. You only have free will when you become aware of the influences that dictate your behavior. If you're unaware of the influences that dictate your behavior, then you are absolutely unaware of what free will is. So that should serve as an encourager to begin the process of study, introspection, meditation, etc. I really hope you're having a wonderful day. Because life is short or long, I mean, it doesn't matter. Right now is very important, and I'm happy to be spending it with you, talking about the most important thing in existence. Be good to yourself, for sure. Be good to yourself. Because all these parts of your life and your personality, they're there because of unconscious influences. And if you want things to be different, you have to address those unconscious influences. You have to address them. Addressing them means you have to bring awareness to them, and you have to observe if and how they stimulate an emotional reaction. If and how they stimulate an emotional reaction. You analyze that process, and you begin to perform surgery, meaning you no longer become emotionally impacted by it, but you observe it as it is. You no longer fill in the blanks of reality with abstract stories, right? Learn to be comfortable with not knowing something right away. Things are always happening, and you do not and cannot have all the answers. Not yet, anyways. So as long as you can't have the answer, there's no point in trying to force an answer. There's no point in trying to force an abstract definition. When I see 11:11 on the clock, I simply smile and have gratitude that I saw it. I don't put an abstract story on it, right? I don't identify with it and try to make something up. There's no reason to do that. Just accept things as they are without putting on any type of shading, without any type of anything. Just the more that you're able to let things be as they are without adding anything extra from your ego, from your memories, the more that you're able to do that, the more you're able to experience life in clarity. The more you'll be able to experience life in clarity. There's no need to make anything up. There's no need to. Consciousness has every possibility, expressed, unexpressed, and never to be expressed. If you learn how to observe, you won't have to make anything up, because the answers are always present, always, everywhere. It's just up to the degree of awareness that the perceiver perceives through. I hope this message makes its way to you in clarity. Have a great day. Pay attention to the patterns around you. And visit me on my YouTube channel because I'm still reading. Eventually you read enough to where you recognize that all the information is coming from a place that is not the book. The information doesn't come from the books. The information is what someone received and translated and expressed it. There is a realm of the unexpressed, and this is what we seek to identify with. Because in this realm of the unexpressed, things are more the way they are, as opposed to the realm of the expressed, where things are limited by time and space. What you are is limited by time and space. You're actually way more than this physical expression. You're way more than this emotional expression, this mental expression. You're way more than the memories that you've gathered and carried. You're more than that. But in the realm of the expressed, which is the realm of time and space, the realm of nature, you can only experience a small aspect of that. But trust and believe there's so much more. There's so much more. And to be honest, what you really are is not even limited to this body. It's not even limited to these memories. And the more that you have awareness of that, the less that you will be bound to karma and to destiny. The more that you identify with that which is not expressed, the less of an influence karma and gravity has upon you. So again, be good to yourself. I usually like to read these comments and respond in order, but I was kind of just going off on a thing, so I'll catch you next time. Ask me next time. But seriously, have a great day. It's no coincidence and no accidents that you see me and hear me. Not because I'm special, but because we're talking about an expression of vibration, of frequency, of potentialities. Okay, you could have potentially been anywhere else, but you actually were here. So take that seriously and be good to yourself. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777.